your host now. Thank you. We are
Yeah,
live.
and we'll need to bring on the other folks back on.
They are all in.
Comments off.
Does that mean we're ready for me?
Your host now. Thank you. We are
Yes, and we'll need to bring on the other folks.
All right, good morning. This is the September 15th, 2022 Finance and Budget Committee is now called to order. Before we get started, we need to make certain findings on the record regarding the necessity of conducting this meeting by electronic participation without a physical quorum present due to ongoing health and safety issues. COVID-19 involving COVID-19. In accordance with Tennessee Code Annotated Section 8-44-108, as chair of the Finance and Budget Committee, I offer the following facts and circumstances to support of a finding of the necessity for the Finance and Budget Committee to conduct its September 15, 2022 meeting without a physical presence or quorum. The Finance and Budget Committee is scheduled to take up important Finance and Budget Committee matters that require timely action by the Finance and Budget Committee, including reports on the university budget, CARES Act funding, construction and facilities, and enrollment. Participation by electronic means is necessitated by ongoing health and safety issues pertaining to the COVID-19 pandemic. Accordingly, I move that the Finance and Budget Committee find that the participation by a quorum of the Finance and Budget Committee members by electronic means of communications is necessary. Is there a second?
Second.
The question is on the motion to find that participation by a quorum of Finance and Budget Committee members by electronic means of communication is necessary. Secretary Pendleton, please call the roll.
Trustee Lewis,
Aye.
Trustee Corbell,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson, I think he may have dropped off for a moment. So, but we have two yeses.
The motion carries. We will proceed with the meeting with a quorum present. Committee members, if you cannot hear or speak to the other committee members or board members, please state so now. For each committee member participating electronically, please identify any individuals who are present in the location from which you are participating. At this time, we need to call the roll. Secretary Pendleton, call the roll.
Trustee Lewis,
Present.
Trustee Corbell,
Present.
Trustee Andre Johnson. We have two, we have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the June 16, 2022 Finance and Budget Committee meeting minutes. The minutes of the Finance and Budget Committee of June 16, 2022 meeting are included in your review in the board materials for September 15, 2022 board meeting. I move the Finance and Budget Committee to recommend the full board the approval of the June 16, 2022 Finance and Budget Committee meeting minutes as contained in the board materials for the September 15, 22 board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The question is on the motion to recommend to the full board the approval of the June 16, 2022 Finance and Budget Committee meeting minutes as contained in the board materials for September 15, 2022 board meeting. President, correction, Secretary Pendleton, I just gave you a raise. Please call the roll.
Hope not my position.
I know that's right. I said raise. That's money, not position.
Right. All right, trustee Lewis,
Present.
trustee Corbill.
Aye.
Motion.
Trustee Johnson, are you back on? Okay, so we have two, we have a quorum.
The motion is approved.
I mean, I'm sorry, we have two ayes.
All right. Item number 4, university budget update. The next item on the agenda is an update on the university budget. Information regarding this finance and budget committee agenda item is included in your board material for September 15, 2022 board meeting. President Glover, please provide pertinent information related to this agenda item. This is an informational discussion item, so no vote is required.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. Mr. Allen, would you present the budget?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President. Trustee Lewis, Madam Chair Cole. In your documents, you should have on page 60, I'm going to confirm that, make sure everyone has page 60, which is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and transfers, budget to actual. Should be a document that has 5 columns across the top. I will start there with this document. We're going to actually go from right to left as opposed to left to right. We're going to start in the FY22 actual column. That's the far right column. Our total revenues, and this was after being able to close FY22, total revenues were 163.3 million. That's our total expenditures, 152.9, leaving a excess of 26 point, including sales and services, it was 163 million. We had excess surplus of $10.3 million. And I'm happy to report for 6/30/2022 that we had a positive, we ended in the black of $6.7 million. If you recall, throughout FY 2022, we did project, I'm very conservative in the budget process. We projected 1.5 million surplus, and we actually ended again at $6.7 million surplus. So those are very positive notes. That's now 2 consecutive years that we have ended in the black, and hopefully we will continue that trend upward. The 6.7 million, that does increase our reserves at 6/30. That rose into the 7/1/2023 net position. The left column, the very first column, the budget column, that is our FY23 budget that was approved by the board during the June meeting. No changes to the budget as it stands. There's one thing I will note, and that is Madam President and Dean Stevenson talked about the additional hotels that we had to lease due to the enrollment growth. Please note that the budget for FY23 was built flat. That was flat tuition. We have, of course, 0 tuition, flat enrollment. So this budget does not include our increase in students for the fall 2023, spring 2024 year. We have, as of July 31st, we have received approximately 51% of our tuition and fees, 3.9 million of our state appropriations, and 1.5 million sales and other services. You'll see that we have about 6.8 million in expenditures, and sales and service auxiliary, which is a food service, is at 157,000, which is a short stretch of our 26 million. But again, those activities don't really ramp up until you get into August, September, when the students are actually back here on campus. So right now we are 53 million ahead of budget, but again, keep in mind, this is just now the start of the new fiscal year. Okay. When the FY23 budget was presented and approved by the Board of Trustees in June, we then had to we had to pivot and look at additional housing for our students. As Madam President had mentioned earlier, we did go in front of the SBC, the State Building Commission, to request approval for 5 additional hotels and the House of God. The net financial impact on the university was 7.2 million, in which 5.2 million of that is covering the fall, and another 1.9 for the spring, which is 7.2 million. That is the gross expense. That includes shuttle services. It also includes food, and that also includes security. So we making sure that our students are safe at the auxiliary locations outside of campus. With our legacy residence halls and also the new residence hall, that generates about 831,000. So the net impact to our financial statements is 6.3 million. Now keep in mind, based on our conservative budget process, we had 6.7 million from FY22 that has now increased our auxiliary funds and our reserves. So that helps offset some of that cost. And again, that does not include any additional students in this budget beyond what we budgeted flat as of last year. Are there any?
In other words, it doesn't include the revenue from those additional students, right?
Say it one more time, I'm sorry.
It doesn't include the revenue from those additional students above and beyond the flat budget. So those should be a fair significant amount of, tuition dollars, other dollars to offset.
Yes, that is correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
But are you saying does it include the expense from the housing, the hotels and stuff, but not the revenue?
Say that again.
Because I understood you to say that the housing expense from the hotels and so forth is included, but not the revenue from the students.
So let me be clear. The housing is not included in the current budget, in the FY23 budget. That's because the budget was approved prior to us getting final approval for the additional hotels. So the State Building Commission approved us to use a portion of our plant fund reserves to cover the cost. What I'm saying is, because we closed in the black for FY22, we have approximately 6.7 million that is now going into that plant fund reserve to help cover that cost. So when we come back in October for the revised budget, you will see changes as it relates to an increase in expenditures, but we also have that offset from the plant reserves that increase from FY22.
But VP Allen, I think what Andre is getting to, and I was too, in my original question, I thought you answered yes. We didn't budget for additional students. We had a flat enrollment. So the revenue for the additional students that we have in fact gotten with our exceedingly good admissions, that's not reflective yet in this budget. Or we have not realized it in any of the financial statements yet.
Right, we
Probably
have
not
not.
fully, correct?
Correct. We have not realized the tuition and fee revenue from these
Correct.
students. That is correct.
But
We
but
did.
Andre,
Right, go
but
ahead.
we did have that 6.7 or whatever $1 million hit for the additional hotels. I don't want to kind of confuse the issue of the using the surplus from last year. When we're looking at this current year, we know we have an unbudgeted expenditure for additional hotels, but we also have an unbudgeted revenue that's not all been baked in yet or not being realized. So what I'm trying to get to, and I think what Andre's getting to as well, is we really got to look at what is that net, not using the surplus from last year to cover it.
Mhm.
So,
So,
and that's
correct.
something that something that'll just kind of bake along, like you said, when we get the revised coming up here the next quarter.
Yes, that is correct. So right now, the $7.2 million that's the gross amount of the expense that we've incurred with with the leasing of the hotels and the House of God. And that will then, so that additional information will be presented in the November at the November board meeting.
Let me ask one other question to try and help clear this up for myself a little bit, VP Allen. That is, the numbers that we are reviewing right now are what is effective July 31st of this year. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. So your July 31 is the fiscal year to date, which is in the second column. So right now, so let me back up a second. The 7.2 million was a unbudgeted expense, okay, for the hotels. That's an unbudgeted expense. We have not included that in the current budget. You will see a revision to that because the board had already approved the 7/1/23 budget prior to us going to the State Building Commission for additional housing. Okay, so in November, you will then see the additional effects of 7.2 million, and then you will see the additional effect of the revenue generated from the additional students beyond the flat budget that we currently see in column 1. So the 83.9 million that you see now, that number could go up, okay? And it will go up, but I don't like to give numbers until we have everything finalized, okay? But at the end of the day, we're able to cover then that housing expense from the hotels. And I hope that answers your question.
It does mine, but I do have one thing that I would like for you to address for our benefit, and that is the mandatory transfers line item.
So mandatory transfers are debt service, Trustee Lewis. We have debt obligations on the new residence hall. We also have debt obligations on one other residence hall and then one in another academic building. So that's what the mandatory transfers are.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Allen,
Please.
also included in the unbudgeted expenses, right, that we will see in November is the impact of when we ask students to move out of the dorms and go 100% online in exchange for no tuition. There's a tuition loss associated with that too, right?
That is correct. I will say that the tuition loss did not exceed the fact that if we were to house students in the hotels, it was actually a benefit to the university to offer zero tuition for these students.
Thank you.
And in most cases, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But it truly, in this particular instance, it's better to have had the students 100% online and take benefit of free tuition versus the additional expenses incurred if we were to then house them in the hotel.
In the November presentation, could you include some kind of detail element in the budget to explain those elements so we can track those?
Sure.
Thank you.
VP Allen,
Thank-
has an analysis been done of the actual cost that a new student causes the university to expend and what those breakpoints are? Meaning, if we get one student, I'm sure it doesn't cost the university any more money. But if we get 3,000 students, is there a big expense associated with it that's going to offset greatly that additional revenue from the tuition?
So to answer
Or do
that,
we know that yet?
right. So how that really works is, and you're kind of asking about at the point of fixed cost versus a variable cost. Once you get to your break-even cost or is equal to your fixed cost, any one student additional is really 100% bottom line. But in the case of higher education, and because of SACS accreditation, et cetera, we have to then hire additional adjunct faculty, full-time professors to meet these needs. So it's really hard to say that one student beyond a break even is going to yield 100% of the revenue or generate 100% at the bottom line. So in looking at that, it is definitely a benefit for us to have these additional students, even at the cost of 7.2 million in additional costs to house the students off campus. One thing we're looking at too is really digging deeper into each cost unit, okay? And that being, for example, I'll use academics. So you have academic departments, you have faculty, you have department chairs, you have deans, you have faculty members, and then we're looking at how many students are actually in those particular classes to make sure that what we're ultimately getting to are self-sustaining departments across campus. And I just use academics as an example. That's the easiest one to be able to charge related revenues and related costs.
Doug, included in that same, to follow up on that question, am I correct in assuming that the cost for us to house a student beyond what they pay for housing, that dollar amount we would charge if they were on campus, is greater for them to live in the hotel? Are we losing money? So when a student pays $3,500 to live in the dorm, but we don't have space and we instead put them in the hotel, is that cost $3,500 or are we losing money on each of those kids?
So the university covers the cost. Because of the cost of the hotels far exceed what we could charge any one student to live at a hotel. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
So
my question. Yeah.
Right. So the net impact is 7.2 million after you take in consideration the housing revenue that's generated from
By those
those
kids.
students living. Right.
Okay, right. Once again, that's support for us to get our own dorms, right? So we can run our own business. So that's good.
Yeah, our friends downtown understand that. That's why they dotting every I and crossing every T when it comes to us. Thank you, VP Allen and Dr. Glover. You have any other comments regarding?
No, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is an update on the construction and facilities. Information regarding the Finance and Budget Committee agenda item is included in your board materials for September 15, 2022. President Glover, please provide pertinent information related to this agenda item. This is an informational discussion item, so no vote is required.
Thank you. Ms. Allen, you want to continue?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. In your packets on page 65, you were provided a spreadsheet. It's a multi-year proposal that has been shared with the legislators, you'll see that this table presents a 5-year plan, and the state provided, well, the state owed us, and the 200 part of that agreement was 250 million, in which they have funded for beginning July 1 of this fiscal year. Now, I do want to keep in mind that this is not cash to the university. Okay, this is not cash used for operating expenditures. This is cash used, or this is funds that were set aside to meet our deferred maintenance needs and to also provide for new construction as it relates to academic services. One of the key points, and Madam President mentioned this earlier, with our housing needs and our students being housed out of the market here in Nashville, it's actually 13% higher to live here than it is to live in Chicago now. The rate is going up between 12 and 15% on an annual basis. All right. So again, our students are looking to come back, and they have a good reason to. With that being said, if you look on the chart, in fiscal year 2025 and also in fiscal year 2027, in the TSU column, you will see that there were funds of or at least bonding capacity set aside for us to build new residence halls. Because of the needs and what we presented to the TSSBA and the SBC, they understand our needs for additional residence halls. They are actually working with us. We're working with THEC and TBR to expedite the process to move these projects forward and for approval during the October session. So we've gotten really good traction on that. That would add 2 new residence halls and an additional 1,000 beds to our much needed housing concerns. So that is a plus, and I guess a light at the end of the tunnel for the university.
Okay.
Are there any questions on the multi-year proposal? I'll just take a few minutes to
Excuse me,
discuss.
I do have one question. What,
Ma'am.
please, and I'm sure you have it in here and I missed it, but give me an update on where we are as it relates to deferred maintenance.
Yes, ma'am, and that's a good question, Madam Chair. So there's really 2 different, well, let me say 3 different things. Number one, this within the 250 million, 8 million was set aside for deferred maintenance beginning in FY 2023. Secondly, there is a deferred maintenance pool that all universities can benefit from, that the state provides. So what we've asked for FY 23 and then 24 is an additional 10.4 million. Those are for those day-to-day deferred maintenance costs that we need to upkeep our buildings. Third, I want to jump back for just a second, and I think this is important to note. On the budget to actual report, the fiscal plant, the expenditures in FY 2022 was 16.9 million. That went down to 15.8 million. We actually, due to the fact that we received these funds that were due to the university, we're able to reduce our cost that we were paying out of E&G for some of the projects. Dr. Johnson and I worked very closely over the spring and summer to perform some additional upgrades to the residence halls and some of the academic space on campus. So, Madam Chair, to answer your question, again, $8 million was set aside for deferred maintenance. And those are some of the things that we're looking at. If you look on page 66, looking at electrical repairs, we're looking at new roofs for the residence halls, HVAC, plumbing issues that we've had on campus. So we're able to now cover some of those costs from the funds that were due to the university and not have to use E&G or additional plant funds to cover those costs.
VP Allen, I have a question. Now, I may not have heard it. If we requested approval or whatever for the $10.4 million, was it approved or did we get the money? What's the status?
So the status of that is, that report has gone in front of TBR. So we look to see for approval within the next month or two. That's the normal process.
All right. Thank you very kindly. At some point, Madam President, I want somebody to tell me, I thought we were no longer under TBR.
I was just indicating, Trustee Lewis, one thing I was going to mention is, if we recall, when we created the new board, this board, that the institution severed from the TBR, except as it relates to 3 areas. One was procurement, another had to do with the banner system, and the other one was dealing with the construction management type of area. So if you recall, the board approved for us to, this board approved for us to sever from the TBR on procurement, like all the other institutions did as well. And then the board approved for us to begin the process of working through THAC, which we have to, in order to sever from the TBR on constructed management. So I know that VP Allen has been working with THAC and making sure that we have in place what THAC wants to see so that we can maintain our own construction management and be able to fully sever from the TBR. Until that happens, though, we are still a part of, and we have to work with the TBR on some of those matters.
Will that cost us more money? Will that cost us more money to have that kind of expertise on our staff?
Yeah, so what has happened with some of the other institutions that severed is they ended up then having to add staffing to make sure that they could support that. And so so I know that THAC felt that some of the schools may have gotten ahead of themselves a little bit in doing that and putting that in place. But I know for our purposes right now, that's something that VP Allen is examining and working on.
And thank you, Attorney Pendleton. And Chairman Lewis, one thing I would like to add to that is, will it add additional costs? Yes, it will. Will it provide economies of scale? Absolutely. We will be able to speed up our projects as it relates to capital construction. In most cases, projects, just to get one off the ground can take a year. That's not including the construction piece. So there are a lot of benefits for us to completely sever from TBR. And as Attorney Pendleton said, that's what we're working on to be able to do that.
And keep in mind in this process too, Trustee Lewis, that the TBR really kind of acts as a middleman, because ultimately we still have to deal with the State Building Commission and TSSBA and other folks, and the TBR has really kind of operated as a middleman. So by severing, we will remove the TBR as the middle person from this and have more with our own staff working directly with the SBC, TSSBA, and others.
That also means we'll have to have a middle person or persons to work with those people downtown too.
Yes.
Agreed.
Jim Lewis.
Before you came, there was someone gave us a number that was like, we had $70 million in deferred maintenance, as I remember. Okay. And that number may not have been valid, but if it was, my question is, we're looking at possibly 18 million here, we had 16 million before. Is there a way we could get additional funds for the deferred maintenance by using contacts or whatever? Or was that number even valid to begin with?
It's unlikely we'll get any more money after the 250 million for infrastructure. There is an amount we get each year for maintenance, but it's unlikely that we'll go back to any more money for that. Because we've submitted a schedule of how we're gonna start fixing the buildings up. And so after we get that, we'll just first use some of this money that we have before I think we go back and ask for more.
It was rolled into that justification for the 250 part of that for the legislature. Yeah.
Okay, so that deferred maintenance number is
It was part of the justification for them
Got
to
it.
give us that money. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, let's
VP
not,
Allen, where,
go ahead, Andre.
thank you. I was trying to ask, what's going on with the insurance claims and the farm and all of that? Is that all wrapped up? Have we recognized all that revenue? Have we gotten buildings redone? Where are we with that?
No, so those buildings are actually in process, and that's part of your packet, Trustee Johnson. And to date, just a second here. The insurance company has paid out roughly 2.7 million. And again, those are ongoing projects. There's been a lot of disputes about fair market value and the cost of materials going up. That's kind of delayed that. But again, we are working with the insurance company on a regular basis to sum that up. But right now, part of that too is there's still shortages on equipment and other materials that's really slowing that process up. They understand what they're doing right now, and we're looking at replacement value versus fair market value on some of these buildings and other items.
So if they paid out 2.6, what was our total claim?
So right now, the total claims are right at 28 million. But please keep in mind, so I wouldn't get so much, I wouldn't get worked up on 2.7 of $8 million. I wouldn't do that. What I would keep in mind is that we are insured, okay, and that they are going to cover the cost necessary to bring the buildings back up to where they were.
Yeah, it's a trickle in as opposed to a payment out. That's all. Yeah,
Mhm.
as long as it keeps trickling, right? We're okay.
Correct. And it's trickling, that's for sure.
That's a great observation. But my mind won't let me forget to remind all of us, that is, we have to have good golf course relationships and good sweet holder relationships and good friendships with people in the state Senate. I wish we could get President Walter Davis or President Hale to tell us, but I can't. So Dr. Glover, you need to call upon them every now and then to tell you what happened and who their cohorts were. They didn't do it by themselves.
Right?
Right. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, President Glover, for your team's presentation.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is a report on the CARES Act funding. Information regarding the Finance and Budget Committee agenda items is included in board material for September 15, 2022 board meeting. President Glover, please provide pertinent information related to this agenda item. Again, this is for informational discussion items only, so no vote is required.
Thank you. Continue, Ms. Allen.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be brief. As noted, the university received 115.6 million in total CARES funding. We have expended the total pot except for the student portion. What Dr. Glover had decided was that we spread out the amount of funds that go directly to students so that students could benefit over multiple semesters. So we have 4.6 million left that's going to go directly to students in the form of cash in their pockets. So we will make an allocation and release those funds. Some of that will be for the fall semester. The remainder will be in the spring, and then that will close us out as it relates to the HERF funding. Any questions? in some shape, form, or fashion, 98% of these funds impacted the students in one form, shape, or fashion. And that is significant. That was intentional of what Dr. Glover wanted to do with the CARES funding. And I think it really benefited our students and the university. All right, that concludes my report on the CARES Act.
Thank you, President Glover and VP Allen, for your team's presentation. The next item on the agenda is the Finance and Budget Report.
Ms. Allen?
Yes, ma'am. I believe I've covered the items that I needed to the Board of Trustees. I just want to thank the cabinet members. We work very hard and we're at the table quite often, making sure that we're addressing the needs of the faculty, students, and staff. I want to thank the leadership of Dr. Glover, and I want to thank my team in business and finance, as it takes everyone to make sure that we are able to keep the university moving. So again, if you all have any other questions, that concludes my report.
Mr. Allen, I just want to go on the record of thanking you for your transparency. As a faculty member and representative of the faculty, we appreciate the transparency, knowing the details. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, VP Allen. Thank you, Dr. Glover, for your team's presentation. The next item on the agenda is an update on enrollment. Information regarding this financial budget item is included in your board material for September 15, 2022. President Glover, please provide pertinent information related to this agenda item. This is for informational item, discussion items. So again, no vote is required. I don't think we've talked about this today, Dr. Glover. So
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Izzard, who's our Associate VP for Enrollment Management, if he would take this before us.
You're on mute. Mr. Izzard, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you, President Glover, and thank you, Chair Lewis. We are delighted to report an increase in enrollment for fall 2022 this academic year. Very excited about that. And as it pertains to our enrollment growth, we're most appreciative of the visionary leadership of our President, Dr. Glover, and the collective work of the cabinet, who day in and day out have worked tirelessly since this time last year to ensure that we remain student-centered and that we continue to be aligned with our university's strategic plan, which really guides all of our enrollment targets and our university resources while fulfilling the university's mission. For this update, I would like to just briefly report on two things: the strategic growth and then our expanded retention efforts across the university. First, regarding the exponential enrollment growth, we want to acknowledge and commend the members of our enrollment management teams who have all done an incredible job of working efficiently and delivering what some may deem impossible or unbelievable. They have really done an amazing job of attracting and retaining the best and the brightest students from across the globe and bringing them here to TSU and nurturing them. So the university's strategic plan, I'd like to just call your attention to that. As it's noted on our website, it projects our measured growth for 5 years with our baseline year beginning in 2020. We're now in year 3 of that strategic plan, which really projected our targeted enrollment as just over 9,300 students. I'm pleased to report our updated final enrollment numbers from fall 2022 from our official frozen data file are as follows. Undergraduate enrollment is 7,678, graduate enrollment 1,540, total enrollment 9,218. What's also phenomenal about this, it includes a record-breaking freshman class of 3,500 163 students, which is the largest freshman class in the history of Tennessee State. As you take more time and look through our strategic plan online, you'll see there's some targeted enrollment goals there. There's also targeted retention rates and graduation rates. And so I want to mention some of the things that have really accelerated our growth. It's really no secret. I heard some comments earlier, but it's really no secret sauce. I really call it just commitment, sacrifice, and hard work, days and nights and weekends. I mean, there's just no substitute for it. Additionally, we have implemented a few measures to ensure that we could monitor our measured approach to reaching our strategic enrollment goal as per our strategic plan. The first thing we did was invested in a robust new CRM, upgrading our technology, which allowed us to better track new applicants and provide personalized communication and engagement with each prospective student through their enrollment journey, from the time that they reach out to us as a prospect all the way through engagement through campus tours, campus visits, special events. All of those students are tracked and get personalized responses through text, emails, as well as phone calls. And then we create a file on each student. The second thing we did was we hired a dynamic new team of enrollment specialists who walked our first generation college students from admission status to the enrollment status. And that helped to increase our yield. And as you look at our population, many of them don't have parents that have gone to college. And so what we found was once a student gets admitted, they're kind of like out there trying to figure out, how do I do financial aid, or how do I get, what's the next step to get housing? So we hired a team. I remember sitting down after our last board meeting with President Glover and VP Allen last September, and we talked about the enrollment goal. They asked, what do we need to reach our goal? And they provided me the additional help to fill that gap. And so that the team of enrollment specialists has also helped to help students not get lost in the enrollment process and just give up. So we were able to increase our yield from that effort. Number three, we actually expanded our new student programs unit to include a new office called the Office of Parent and Family Services. And this helped us to help parents who had not gone to college and really helping them to navigate this process. And that also increased our yield. We implemented an enrollment probability system to track the probability of our prospects converting to admitted students. And that helped us to actually stay on top of students who may have been stuck in the pipeline or needed further assistance. A big one, in addition to those efforts, we automated our transcript upload and decisioning process, which drastically increased our admission processing time. So it went from taking between 5 to 8 minutes per application to actually getting application done within a minute or two. And that really allowed us to increase our number of decisions on applications, which also ultimately converted into yield. You can see in your data chart that I provided, we had over 24,000 students who applied. And so with that level of interest in the university, we had to streamline how we track every student and then make sure that we're being efficient with our time as we are processing. A couple other things I want to mention quickly. We activated a massive digital marketing campaign which targeted high profile students who were best fit for Tennessee State University. And students like that, really like that personalized attention. They like universities to reach out to them first. They like for universities to be consistent. It's almost like a dating relationship. They get excited when they get a text from TSU or get excited when they get an email or a call from a member of our team. And I personally, as vice president, associate vice president, took a lot of time just calling students and parents to let them know that they're important to TSU and that TSU was the best option. And of course, that yielded so much because it meant a lot for the students to hear from administration in their prospective school list. We hired a social media expert who has increased our social media presence on our handle at TSU Admissions. So if you visit TSU Admissions on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, you'll see how engaged our prospective students have been. and it gives them a glimpse of TSU while they're in high school. And this has also increased our engagement. And then lastly, I'll say that we've enhanced we continued our relationship and really stepped it up with our partner with high school students who meet our demographic in the Common Black College app. All of these are things that were accessible to us that we were able to dig in and really lean into last year that we're seeing the dividends of that hard work. Next, let me just briefly mention to you or share some of the thoughts about our retention. I'm pleased to update the board with information and let you know that we've developed an updated retention plan for the university that really focuses on all of these new students and also our continuing students to help them to not just be admitted to the university, but persist and also graduate. So this new retention plan that we've developed, it's actually still under review, but we've already implemented many of the items there. We've been working collaboratively with the other divisions. You'll get an update, a detailed update in our November meeting, and also we're happy to provide a copy for you. But the focus of this retention plan, there were 4 main tenets or 4 major goals that's in this retention plan. Goal number 1 is creating a sense of belonging through common educational experiences. Goal number 2 is to achieve or provide academic resources for teaching and for learning for both faculty and students. Goal number 3 was to integrate academic and career advising, connecting what am I studying to where am I going to work, what is my career going to be like according to best practice. Those are some really important tenets of retention. And the last thing was to really increase our student engagement and our student development efforts so that while students are here, they're not only in the classroom learning and matriculating, but they're also being developed as a young person into a professional prepared to go into the workforce. So those are the 4 main goals of the strategic plan, and each goal has strategies and then action items, objectives with deadlines, et cetera, et cetera. Very excited about that work. We hired a new director of retention. We've hired retention coordinators for every college. Each college also will be assigned what we call a undergraduate peer advocate that actually helps to track and stay in touch with all of our students within those colleges. In that plan, you'll see that we're monitoring attendance. Students that miss 2 or 3 classes will, they will get urgent attention to know, hey, what's going on? Are you having a challenge? Have you considered this resource? So really plugging them into the resources that are available. Of course, you've heard Dr. Melton talk about the early alert system. We've met with our faculty senate. We've also spent time with the chairs of every department, and they're very excited about being engaged. We've talked to our national alums about doing professional mentoring and also faculty who want to volunteer for mentoring for our new students. So there are all kinds of efforts that we are rolling out daily and weekly, really to keep our students at TSU, keeping them excited about TSU, and helping them understand what college is all about as they transition from high school into college. This comprehensive plan really articulates the university's commitment toward our new students and our returning students and preparing them for academic and student success. And so with that, I will pause there and turn it back over to you, President Glover. And just want to thank you again for all of your leadership, and also thank the board and all of our colleagues. We could not have done this phenomenal work without your support and your guidance. That concludes my report.
Mr. Lewis, if I can ask a couple questions.
Please do, sir, at this time.
All right. Terrence, so in your retention plan report that you're going to give us in November, could you include retention or persistence numbers, percentages by classes? That would be helpful for us as we look at this, because we looked a while back, we talked about concerns about juniors and seniors persisting in that kind of rate. So if we could see those kind of numbers, that would be beneficial. Also, can you give us some some data regarding incoming freshmen's average ACTs or average GPAs, what this incoming freshman class looks like?
Sure, I'll give you an estimated number. We
Okay.
just data file, and I'm actually making sure it's all clean as it goes to team. But just from our preliminary data, the average GPA is roughly 3.4. And when you look at that compared to where our previous classes have been, you'll see a major jump in that. And we're excited about that because our goal is to really transform the learning environment at TSU. So over 4 years, if we continue to maintain this level of student, we'll see a whole different type of student at TSU that meets our profile. As it relates to ACT, a lot of students continue to struggle with ACT because of the test taking and also COVID and not being able to have access. So it's still roughly around 19 for those who had submitted.
Okay, thank you. One more last question that confused me in the report is I look at the table that has it's your undergraduate admission pool analysis table that you gave us for fall 2022. And I rolled back and looked at the June 16 table, and the numbers don't match in any way, shape, or form. They're all different. Then I noticed that in June, this was a predictive piece, at least for the upcoming fall, right? So I rolled back to the March 9th table and focused in on frozen data, right? Which would have been fall 18, fall 19, fall 20. And those numbers don't match either. So I'm confused as how some of the historical admitted numbers, the net admitted, denied, incomplete, withdrawn, and grand totals all changed or don't match the 22 table. And so can you explain that, or am I just looking at these numbers dyslexically? So
no, I'm happy to explain. If you could, I follow what you're saying about fall 22 data, the current table that you're looking at. And when you say you wrote the March, are you talking March 2021 of this year or last year?
So I'm looking at the March 9th, 2022 board materials.
Okay.
Where you present that same table, right?
Correct.
And I'm disregarding the fall 22, okay? Because that was an estimate back then, right?
Sure.
But I'm looking at fall 2018, fall 2019, fall 2020, and fall 2021. Those are known quantities. Those years are done, right? Those numbers should roll forward as the exact same number historically in the new table, and they don't.
I got it. I follow.
They're actually almost doubled. So I'm confused.
So what you're looking at here in the undergraduate application pool, that's by date, a certain date and time, right? And so I would imagine, I don't have it on this file when this actual file was pulled, but that dates and time, let's say we are in September. Let's say it was September 1. You'd have this snapshot of what the enrollment on previous reports. You may see as of, or you'll see the actual date. Do you notice those dates?
Yeah. So let me just give you an example. So I'm going to roll back to fall 2019. Okay. So fall 2019 on 9 March, right? Mm-hmm. So the freshman, it's frozen data at that point, right? So I mean, we already know who'd been admitted for the fall.
No. Just to be clear, the application data pool is not frozen data.
Okay. It's not completed for a fall semester, right? I'm confused. So the fall semester started in August, and this report is generated in March, right? So we know who's here for the fall and how many people were admitted in the fall.
No, this is what I'm trying to explain. I'm happy to have a conversation offline, but what I'm saying is application data is live data at that stamp in time.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with the number of students admitted. for the fall, which is frozen data. Application data is live data at the time of the report. So if it on March, let's say March 1, 2020, I don't have it in front of me, but let's say it was 2,000 students that were admitted on March 1, 2020. It does not, and I'm not sure what your question is, but it does not necessarily mean that those 10,000 students would be enrolled. It's just a snapshot of the number of students that were actually admitted at that time.
Yeah, so I don't want to belabor this. We can talk offline too, but I'm going to use your 2021. So fall 2020 in the March report, total admitted number of students in your column, 3,236. In your current table, fall 2020, fall term 2020, total admitted now reads 6,998.
Okay.
And I just don't understand that.
Fall 2020
in
total
March.
March.
So we know those people who were admitted for the fall semester, right? And that's 3,000. But in the historical report that's included on the table in our current book, for that fall term, that number now is 6,998. I mean, so I'm just confused in interpreting these tables, and it may just be me. I don't know.
Sure.
And I'd be happy to sit down with you and help me to better understand this. But as we roll forward, and I'm looking at the same title on the table, and I'm looking at what I'm perceiving as historical data, which can't change, right? The year is over. And there's dramatic differences in the numbers.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'm happy to get with you this afternoon or availability you have to really what the data charts and where the numbers are pulled from. I'll get our IT team on the line as well, so that you have a clear understanding of it.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Lewis, may I speak?
Please do, sir.
Yes, I just first of all want to congratulate you, Terrence, on this really progressive process that you have undertaken to help grow our enrollment. There are people who are going to want to know how we experience this dramatic increase in our enrollment, and that the quality of our students have not gone down, but has gone up, which pointed out in your comparative analysis. It is important that the story, again, I hate to harp on communication, public relations, etc., to defend ourselves against the onslaught of individuals who may want to think that we have changed our standards for admission while we are growing as rapidly as we are. And so I commend you on bringing us into the 21st century with some of the wonderful initiatives that you have articulated. And I think the story needs to be told, and we need to be prepared because there are people that are suspecting that perhaps we did something untoward to increase our enrollment as rapidly as we did and will be in the future.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Trustee McKenzie, I appreciate the recognition of that, and it's been a campus-wide effort. I'll also just underscore that, when the university makes a strategic plan and the president puts the resources behind that, that's what we do. We maximize those resources to get the results. And so I'm happy that we are able to achieve the success according to our plan.
Thank you, Trustee McKenzie. Are there any other observations?
Chair Lewis, just real quick, just Steve, just an interesting thing for us to think about. So on the retention side, which historically, as I've learned for the last 4 or 5 years, kids don't come back because they run out of money, basically, right? I mean, that's one of the big reasons, big drivers. So I'm looking back at the CARES funding, significant money as far as debt relief for our students. And then I'm also thinking about, I don't know all the details yet, of what might be contemplated with this current debt reduction plan that President Biden has put out there. And I'm trying to think through, there's a lot of money going towards student debt reduction that should help us on our retention side. So we should kind of think that, keep that in mind, I think, parents. What does that mean for us? How does that continue to be? And President Glover and Mr. Allen, because that could be significant if we can reduce percentage-wise the turnover that we might be seeing because of lost funding. And you don't need to respond. I just think it's an interesting thing for us to continue to think about it as we think forward over the next several years.
Thank you, Trustee Corbell. Any other observations? Well, if there are no other observations, I do have one. I want to thank Trustee Corbell and Trustee McKenzie and Trustee Johnson for your observations. But I also want to remind President Glover that it seems to me that Mr. Izzer is a key to the comptroller's questions why we've grown so. It seems that you have given him the permission to hire the staff, the people needed, as well as the money to pay them to get the job done. And in addition to your high visibility, as well as the school's high visibility, it seems that we have done our job. So now I am confident that you can answer the question after homecoming when the meeting occurs by making sure that the information from Mr. Izzer is given to the controller. Ain't no doubt in my mind.
He is key, and that's why we're saying we're getting files on each and every one of those students. So they'll have exactly what they need.
Well,
Thank
get him an Uber ride with you down there so he can tell it.
Yes.
Lifting.
Now, pardon me, I guess I got all off into what I was thinking. It seems to me that there's no more business to be brought before this committee. Is that correct?
That was the last
Yes.
agenda item.
All right. If there's no additional business, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Mr. Attorney Pendleton, would you call the roll for us?
Yes, Trustee Lewis,
Aye.
Trustee Corbell,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
We have 3 ayes.
Meeting stands adjourned. Madam Chairperson?
Yes, she
We'll
had
start
to
back at
step
2
away.
o'clock.
So we are just going to proceed then at 2 o'clock, be back at 2 o'clock. You have a separate link for that, for your 2 o'clock meeting. So please check your emails on that, or let Arlene, Dr. Nicholas Phillips know if you need to be resent that link.
What you said? I thought you had me something. Okay.
And we'll
Thank
see
you.
everyone
Thank you
at
very much.